This is Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency, and today we've got a very, very special guest that you may or may not actually have heard of. This is Louise Ryan. And Louise is a long-term animal activist for many, many decades. And we're going to be talking to Louise today about your activism journey. So welcome, Louise. Thank you for joining us on Animal Justice Emergency. Can you tell us about how you went vegan as a young person, as a young woman?
I would say 17, 18 when I decided to go vegan. And that was to do with the people that I was with at the time, who were very into activism, animal rights activism. I'd been vegetarian from the age of 12. And I was quite a strict vegetarian, actually, in terms of, and I know there's going to be a few people that might give a wry smile to that, who are fully blown vegans. But in actual fact, I didn't wear leather and I didn't eat eggs. For me, that was kind of a big thing, as well as sticking to my vegetarian beliefs. I'm not going to call it a diet because it wasn't. It was a belief system. And I was 12 years old and I was at school. And there was a lovely woman who was a teacher that was just in for a few weeks. And her name was Mrs. McGilligan. And she was a very lovely woman who had a lovely cotton shirt on. I always remember her. And her hair was up in a bun. And she always smelt of garlic, very heavy of garlic. And she used to come into the classroom and she was very, very her own person. And she sat down to me and she said, You're Louise, aren't you? And I said, yes, miss. And she said, you've not met me before. I've just joined the school for a few weeks. And one day we got talking about animals and she said, you're a big animal lover, I hear. Because the school knew that I was a big animal lover. And because I never shut up about animals and what was happening to animals. I was very sensitive. So she said, I've heard all about you. And so we started chatting. And I said to her, are you vegetarian, Mrs. McGilligan? And she said, no. She said, I'm not vegetarian. She said, I'm a vegan. And I said, oh, you're a vegan. I said, what does that mean? She said, well, I don't have any animal products. And I don't wear fur, don't wear leather, and I don't wear wool. And I do the least harm to our planet as best I can. And I grow all my own veg. And she, to me, I just instantly looked up to her. I just instantly looked up to her and thought, oh my God, she's gorgeous. I love the ground this woman walks on. And it was coming up to November and into December. And I was very down on this one particular day at school. And she said, what is it, Louise? You seem very quiet. And I said, well, see, Mrs. McGilligan, I don't like Christmas very much. And she said, why is that? And she said, now let me guess. She said, is it the turkeys? And I said, yes. And she said, well, I tell you what, why don't I have a word with the headmaster and see if you can share my table in the hallway. Would you like that? And there was a big gathering of people in the hallway, including all the children. Now, this was obviously a special school, what would be classed as a special school. At that time, that's what it was called. We all met together and she had me on her table. And they brought, for the first time ever, I'd never had this, because I always had to go without gravy. And they brought her a vegetable stock gravy, in a beaten up old jug on the table. And they did her and me a ratatouille meal, which was crumble. It was a vegetable crumble. And I looked at her and she looked at me while they all sat round eating turkey. And she looked at me and she went like that. We had 2 green beakers on the table and she went, cheers, Louise. I said, cheers, Mrs. McGilligan. And she said, one day, she said, you won't have to look at a sea of people eating meat. They will all be like us one day, Louise, all of them. And I just looked and she said, you're a very lovely girl. She said, and you'll be all right and it'll be okay, right? And then a few weeks later, she was gone and I never saw her again. But her words resonated with me. I wanted to go vegan because of her. I knew that listening to her and spending that time with her was crucial. So when I left school, and it wasn't easy by any means, so I'd got into a massive row with my headmaster in terms of animal rights. He didn't like me, I didn't like him. I left in the March, April. I hadn't even done my exams. It was so bad. And then I remembered her words. The words came flooding back to me. Louise, be vegan, do what you need to do, and everything will be all right. One day people will have to eat like us. So then in 1988, 89, I thought, right, that's what I'm going to do. So I came back home and I said to my mum and dad, I'm going to be vegan. And my mum said, well, to be honest, Louise, to be fair, you're virtually there, aren't you? So she said, you might as well go the full way because there's no point in saying anything else to you. So I thought to myself, well, yeah, quite. No one's going to argue. And so that was it. I went vegan in end of 89, 90. And that was like the first stepping stone really into the activism that then followed part of my life. So yeah.
So how
So yeah.
I mean, that's an amazing story. So how did you go from, this young woman who just left school to, even knowing about activism?
Funny enough, it ties in quite nicely. I was at home. I thought, right, gone vegan. Blah, blah, blah. Right, said to my mum, gone vegan. Blah, blah, blah. Mum, you should be vegan too. Blah, blah, blah. Like that. And she was going, oh, I know. And yes, you're right. And I thought, yeah, well, hopefully one day she will. And dad and my brother and my sister, I was like, come on, for goodness sake. I was veggie at 12. What are you all dawdling for? So my mum came home from shopping one day and she picked up a leaflet in town. And it was somebody was doing a stall in Kidderminster, this was. And she picked up the leaflet and it had got, the irony of this is hilarious. It was animal rights meeting at the Boar's Head in Kidderminster. She came in, she put the shopping away, and I can remember it like it was yesterday. She said, she said, oh, I got something in my bag, she said, for you. And I went, oh, okay. And she said, look. And she goes, there's a meeting tonight at the Boar's Head. I said, at the Boar's Head, an animal rights meeting. I said, not there. I said, Jesus, it's got such a bad reputation, which it had. It was a proper greaser's place, There was blood splatters on the floor, from where a fight had gone on the night before. It had a really bad reputation. Anyway, we both thought, right, well, we'll go, and so it was about 7:30. We caught the train from out here. And I said to her, right then, I said, bloody hell, Mum, we're going to have to watch ourselves, in this pub. And she said, I know. She goes, anyway, we'll give it a bash. So off we went, both together. And we both looked nice. I mean, she was only 40 and I was 17, 18. We opened these doors and anyway, these two guys were stood there and they got eyeliner on, it was quite popular in the 80s. And he said, oh, are you here for the meeting? And we went, yes. And all these people were kind of stood round very awkwardly looking at one another thinking, oh man, we're in this terrible pub, there's blood on the floor. And he goes, well, the meeting's upstairs. And we were like, oh, so we went up the stairs of this pub, which was a large pub with this huge staircase. And at the top of it was this dog. And it kind of, the shadow of this dog looked like something from the Hound of the Baskervilles, it went woof, 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 woof. at us, and we went like this. I went, "Oh yeah, we look like animal rights, not," to my mum, and my mum went, "Oh my god, maybe we should have just stayed at home." I said, "Well, we're here now." So off we pushed each other up the stairs, and this guy came out, big, hairy, greasy guy. Come here, pulled the dog back into the room, shut the door, goes, "The meeting's through there, love." And so that was our first intro into animal rights. And we both sat there, and all these people started to come in. And we were all chatting, talking. Oh, how are you? Oh, well, hello. We were all going like that, chatting to one another, because a few people we actually did know. And actually, some people we still see today from the original meeting. So we had this meeting, and one of the first videos they put on in the meeting was a lynx video. It was an anti-fur it was a big anti-fur movement at the time. And they put this model that was walking up a kind of catwalk, and she had all cameras flashing and this big fur coat wrapped round her, and she was dragging it across the floor, and all the blood was running from the coat. And that was one of the first videos I'd ever seen on animal rights. And then Canada was doing a big seal cull, and so we were talking all about that, and everybody was conversing. And the two guys that were there was Richard Mountford and Paul Holliday, both very dedicated vegans that really put us at our ease. Very funny guys, not at all up their own bums, in that sense that they knew how to converse, they knew how to talk, and they knew how to make you feel welcome. And my mum put her hand up basically, and they did like a questions and answer round. And she put her hand up in the air and she said, "Oh, I'm only here for the seals. I'm not here to be anything else." And Richard said, he said, "Right, okay." And he said, "Well, we've all got to start somewhere, haven't we?" And she said, "Well, it's terrible what happens." And Paul Holliday actually said, "Well, it's really awful what happens to all of the animals." And so Mum was like taking leaflets and reading, and she was just mesmerised by the whole thing. I fell immediately into place, really. I felt like I was at home for the first time ever, that these guys were warm, they were friendly, everybody was lovely in the room, no one had a problem with each other. In fact, the evening I would have said was a raving success, which it was. And we all left that meeting feeling like it was well worth going, even though it was at the Boar's Head. It was a really, really good night, and a lot of information was given out, and how they came across was brilliant. So I went from that to, they were doing stalls regularly in Birmingham, and they said to me, "Well, do you want to come along?" And I said, yeah, that would be great. And I was very, very good friends with Paul Holliday, who was somebody who was working in Animal Aid, Birmingham Animal Aid, and he was also doing other things as well. He was a really good activist and campaigner. And he said, "Look, we're doing a stall up in Birmingham. Do you want to come and help us give out leaflets?" And so I did. I went up there every single weekend. I would go up to Birmingham, stand behind the stalls, chat away, lively. People would be engaged with me, and I absolutely loved talking to the members of the public. I loved it, even if it was confrontational. I still loved it. I still loved being part of that family. And I can remember handing out leaflets on the streets, walking up and down, chatting. "Hi, would you like a leaflet? Come up and sign our petition. Come on, ladies, gents, come on. We've got an animal cruelty petition to sign here. Come on." Like this. And that's how it was. And if I wasn't doing that, I was out front of the stall, going out, handing out petitions, and getting people to sign from a board. "Would you like to sign, madam? Would you like to sign, sir?" "Oh, no." And you go, "Okay. Well, can I give you a leaflet then?" "Yeah, I'll take a leaflet from you, love." And it was very much like that. I was very, very dedicated to it. So I got to know a lot of people at that point. And then the one Christmas, I think this would have been about 89, I was very friendly with Paul. We decided to go to DIS, I think it was DIS in Norfolk. And this was a laboratory, and it was the first time I'd ever left home on Christmas Day to spend my time outside a laboratory. It was a huge laboratory. And I said, I know where I want to be on Christmas Day. And my mum and my dad said, well, if you want to go, you go. You know, you're out there doing it. You're out there all the time, leafleting, talking, chatting, pushing the vegan message. Pamela, I was full of life, and I loved it. And I was dedicated. And so to be outside this laboratory on Christmas Day was the only place I really wanted to be. And I got a placard with me, and they were serving hot food, Christmas dinner. In fact, it was an anarchist kitchen that was set up outside. There would have been probably 100 or more outside the laboratory. Now, of course, you could say, well, what's the point of standing outside a laboratory on Christmas Day? But the fact was, I just wanted to be where the animals were when the staff weren't around. You know, I just wanted to be there. It's to do with me. I know the animals don't know I'm there, but I wanted to be in solidarity with those creatures that were inside a room somewhere. So that's really what was my first taste of being outside this huge laboratory on Christmas Day. And we got up very, very early to go. In fact, it was actually dark when we went. So, you know, it was lovely. It was a lovely journey. But when I got outside there, oh, the feelings, the juxtaposition of it being Christmas Day and the lab, the cold, hard lab was just something I've never forgotten, really. And bearing in mind I was still very young, you know, and still trying to get my bearings on what this meant. You know, doing a leafleting stall is not the same as going outside somewhere like that and thinking, oh my God, you know, there's got to be more than just this then, you know, because doors begin to open, don't they? Once you start opening one door into animal cruelty, you open up another door, and it's like an onion with skin on it. You peel the layers back, and there's more and more horrific stuff going on than you ever thought there could be. So, but that was a great day, and there was great solidarity with all of us. I have never had such a laugh. It was just fabulous, and beautiful big boards, huge big banners, people with their dogs, people chatting. We were singing carols. So there was something very, very tangible, just a very lovely thing. Almost going like back to the First World War, in that sense, you were singing carols to creatures that couldn't hear you, but somehow you just needed to. Heartbreaking, really, a heartbreaking thing. But nevertheless, was I glad to be there? Yes, I was. That again was another little thing that was building up to other activism. I used to do work at Animal Aid as well. I used to go to the office, and I would sort out boards, and I would sort out leaflets, and I would sort out stuff that needed cutting up for demonstrations. You know, if we were doing like placards or boards, so we would sit on the floor in an evening and we would do boards and things like that. And so, you know, we'd get this big cutter thing with a big arm, and we'd have to do all that. So I was always immersed in it somehow, some way. I was always immersed in it. And so, you know, there'd be meetings going on at night. So sometimes I would stay over. I'd stay over at Paul's. He'd go to the Animal Aid office, and he'd go, "Well, there's a meeting tonight, Louise. Do you want to listen in?" And I'd go, "Yes, I'd love to." So, you know, I would listen to kind of things being said, and there was demonstrations going on all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. We always knew there'd be something coming up at the weekend, whether it was a laboratory, whether it was leafleting, whether it was people doing sabbing. There was always chatter about something going on. Went from animal aid to a demonstration, and I bumped into different people that I'd never met before, and I knew that there was something different about them. They weren't just doing leafleting, although they would do leafleting, but they were into other things. They were into direct action, and they were into animal liberation activities. And one of those was John Curtin. I met him, and his girlfriend then was Angie Hound, and we all got on very well with them. And my mum was immersed in animal rights at that point as well. So we all knew one another very well. Mum was doing stuff, I was doing stuff, and it was really busy. We'd go with a friend to, say, a laboratory, and they'd be there. So we'd be chatting away, having a bit of a laugh. And, you know, it was such a unique time, Pamela. It wasn't all seriousness. It was really, really lovely, because you'd share food, and you go, oh my God, I saw you at so and so. Oh yes, that's where I saw your face. How are you? So you'd have that chat, you'd have that banter. And this was an animal aid thing that I'd been involved in, which was a few months before they decided to go to Boots. This story was beginning to break about the Boots laboratory in Thurgarton in Nottingham. And I went there with Richard Mountford and others, and it was a peaceful demo there done by Animal Aid. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was an awful place. It was terrible. Smelt of wet grass and decay. And I just stood there with my board and my banner, and we were chatting, and I just kind of remembered it in my mind's eye, that there was a path, a road, the buildings, and it didn't kind of leave me. When we left, I could hear all these dogs barking, and they're angering me to hear all these beagles, and they've got a very distinctive bark to them, like a German shepherd's got a rat-a-tat-tat bark. These were more woo, woo. There was like, say, 150 to 200 dogs all doing that bark, bouncing and bouncing to try and see you. And I said to Richard and other people, I said, God, this is really awful. This is terrible. Isn't this terrible? What a terrible place. How much do the public know about this? You know, they're going in and they're buying products from Boots. Do they know there's a laboratory that's connected to them? Where does the public fit into this? So my horror, this would have been about late 89 to 90, was really tangible, because I started thinking, Jesus, I've been to this in Norfolk, and I've been here, and it's just hell. A few weeks later, I went and stayed with an activist at her caravan, and her name was Angie. She was talking, and John was there, and he said, hey Louise, we're doing like a takeover thing. And so I said, oh, okay. What's that then? And he said, yeah, quite. He said, well, what it is, we're thinking of getting in to the laboratory at Thurgarton, and I hear you've been there. And so I said, yeah, I went there a few weeks back. I said, it's a real shithole. And I said, it's connected with Boots, isn't it? And he said, yes, it is. We're hoping to try and do something with it. Would you like to be a part of that? So I said, yeah, count me in. I'll have a bash. And he said, yeah, oh, wow, great. You're kind of enthusiastic. And of course, you know, no idea of what I was actually getting myself into. You know, no question of that. Hello. Gosh, the naivety of youth, eh? And so that was it. He said, right, that's great. Well, we can have you. You'd really like to take part in whatever we're doing. You know, no real outline plan here. And I said, yeah, great. They were up to all sorts. Bloody good little group, bloody good people. Lovely, lovely. And they're just my heroes, really.
Thank you so much for your time and your incredible memories and sharing, Louise Ryan. I mean, it's as I said, totally inspirational. Um, I'm look,
Bless you.
I'm looking forward to the next episode already.
Yeah,
It's going to be like a
yeah,
long running. There's going to be a few of these. It's going to be like a long running sort of
that's fine.
series because there's so much that you can share with us. But in the
Yeah,
meantime, this is Pamela from Animal Justice Emergency, and together we can organise as women activists and activists to end the war on other animals. Thank you and respect, Louise Ryan.
thank you. Respect to you all too. Take care and keep safe, all of you out there doing activism.